The Toronto Raptors were tipped for great things this season. After winning 48 games last season and finishing as the 5th seed while keeping their young core together, it seemed like maybe the sky was the limit for what they could achieve this season, but it really has not played out that way. And sitting now 6 games under 500, is it time to start blaming head coach Nick Nurse for the struggles this season? Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Amateur Hour Sports. This is your source for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. If you want to see more videos like this and live stream watch parties for virtually every single Raptors game, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help me on my road to 14,000 subscribers on this channel. We have a video today, stream tomorrow, video Thursday. This week it's going to be 7 straight days of content. You do not want to miss out. And if you find yourself enjoying this particular video along the way, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Try to get us to 250 likes on today's video. And this video in particular is going to be focused on Nick Nurse. There's been a lot of discussion about where things have gone wrong this season, and Nick Nurse is becoming more and more at the forefront of those discussions as a result of the Raptors having struggled so much this season. And perhaps a lot of the struggles from a coaching standpoint were highlighted yesterday in the Raptors' very narrow loss to the Phoenix Suns. Now, as far as the season goes, the grand scheme of things, maybe competitive losses aren't the worst thing for this team, but a lot of the games for the Raptors have just come down to the wire and they cannot get over the line. The Raptors are good enough to be competitive consistently, but they're not good enough to win consistently, especially in these very close games. In fact, the Raptors are 1-7 in games decided by 3 points or less this season. That is good for the worst record in such games in the entire National Basketball Association, and maybe a little of that can come down to coaching. We've spoken a lot about the roster construction. We've spoken a lot about maybe players not playing so well. Well, it seems like a lot of the main hitters in this team are now actually playing well. Fred VanVleet's firmly back. Gary Trent Jr. is firmly back, as is Scotty Barnes. Maybe a slight slump of a period here for Pascal Siakam, though he's still playing well. It's just not as well as we know that he definitely can play. Achua is having a little bit of a resurgence here, showing the potential once again. I'm super high in Achua. I'm loving what I'm seeing. But the Raptors still can't find ways to win basketball games. And Nick Nurse is becoming a topic of conversation amongst a lot of Toronto Raptors fans, and Nurse is actually now becoming a topic amongst reporters. There's been some reports coming out that the Raptors front office, obviously, they're not happy with the product that they've had this season. A 23-29 record at this point really is not flattering to the Raptors in any way whatsoever. They are seemingly going to go into the trade deadline chasing a draft pick rather than chasing a playoff spot. And these reports are suggesting that they have made it known to Nick Nurse that they are not really happy with what he's done from a coaching standpoint so far this season. Nurse has the rest of this season plus the entirety of next season remaining on his contract, but there seems to be a little bit of hesitation from the front office in order to give Nick Nurse that contract extension. So people have been asking me, people have been talking about it. We talked about it on the live stream yesterday, and during the game, we did a live stream watch party. I've been asked about it on social media. Is Nick Nurse in trouble? Is Nick Nurse, are his days numbered with the Toronto Raptors organization? And in my opinion, maybe, but probably not. I think that as far as Nick Nurse so far this season goes, I have not been particularly happy with what he's done with the Raptors. I mean, definitely there has been a lot of room for improvement. I'm going to get to that in just a second, where areas in which simply they have just not been good enough. But Nurse, a year and a half left on his contract. I think we can give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt since he's recently been an NBA Coach of the Year. Recently, he's been an NBA champion as a Toronto Raptors head coach. There's probably some people out here who never thought the Raptors would ever win a championship, and Nick Nurse helped us achieve that and was influential in that and was really influential in the landscape of the NBA. The way he prepared defensively, the schematics he threw out defensively, they were foreign, and a lot of NBA teams and coaching staffs have adapted his defensive philosophies and some of his offensive philosophies in the last few years. Right now, I feel like the NBA is kind of catching up to those things. I feel like the league has adapted a lot this season compared to last season. You very rarely see such a sharp change in the landscape of the NBA, the way games are played, the way teams play, compared to, I think, this season compared to last season was such a big scoring spike. such a reliance on your superstars to just be the man, give them the ball, get out of the way. They're going to go create their shot. I'd rather them go create maybe not the best shot compared to somebody else getting the best shot. Efficiency, but really leaning into analytics this season. Just schemes, and there's been things that have changed in the NBA. And I feel like a lot of these foreign defensive concepts that Nick Nurse was throwing out, maybe even last season as well, helping the Raptors have such a good defense, have really been adjusted by oppositions as they come to face the Toronto Raptors. But things, that's on the coaching staff. That is on Nick Nurse to make those differences and make those adjustments, and he just hasn't been able to do that as much this season. That being said, it's hard for me to critically evaluate a coach given the fact, he's working with what he's working with in terms of a roster. A chef is only as good as his ingredients, and the Raptors right now, they still don't have a bench like yesterday. The bench that was rolling out: Chris Boucher, Thaddeus Young, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Malachi Flynn, Christian Koloko. That's just straight up not that good of a bench. And it's very hard for me to see people complaining about how many minutes the starters are playing. How can you honestly justify those guys getting any more minutes than they do? Maybe Koloko can get a few more minutes here and there, but the Phoenix Suns would hunt him on defense. Boucher got a good chunk of minutes. Juancho, I feel like 1 minute at this point right now is too much for him, but we just don't have the bench in place to circumvent having to play him. Beyond that, this team still does not have enough shooters. We know that. We know the front office did not address that correctly in the offseason. We still don't have a rim protector. So it's tough for me to really be harsh on Nick Nurse and put his job into question when I know the roster is just not there for him to really work with at such a degree that maybe we would expect from this season. And even Nurse in press conference has been vocal about the fact that the roster just maybe isn't quite what he needs it to be at this point, and he just doesn't have the pieces that he needs to be successful here. In that championship season, not only did we have one rim protector, we had two. Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka were such key parts of that team and that defense, and though since then we still have been able to produce quality defense like last season without a big, but it's clear. You look around the NBA, the best defenses in the league, they have the rim protector that can play in drop coverage. They have the help defender. And maybe even this season, we're lacking the point of attack defender. Fred VanVleet's been great recently, and he's really brought back his offensive game, but defensively, the point of attack defense still isn't quite what we want it to be and what it was last season. So all in all, I think it's harsh to say that Nurse should be fired based on what we've seen so far this season. That being said, I don't think he's completely exempt from criticism. I think yesterday really was a full display of where things have gone wrong this season. I thought defensively the Raptors were okay in this game, but there's been inconsistencies there. I will give him the benefit just because, OG Anunoby maybe isn't there for that game specifically, but all in all in the season, the defense just has not been good. Though I really feel like with a quality rim protector who doesn't get hunted on defense as much as Christian Koloko, this team could have success in those areas. Offensively is where there's been a little bit more problems. And more importantly, I think it's where the game really does slow down. In the full court settings, the Raptors have operated really well this season. We've had some very high scoring games. You could say, well, our offensive rating is up and we're scoring so many points right now. But as I was mentioning earlier, the Raptors in those clutch scenarios, those really close games where we have faltered so much this season, I think that is the biggest blemish on what Nick Nurse has been able to do this season, because I have been very, very frustrated with the play calling in those specific settings. Where the Raptors have looked good in games for the first 44 minutes, it has all kind of gone away late on in the game. And instead of playing nice, fluid offense, it turns into a lot of ISO ball, just kind of hero ball. And maybe that's on a little bit of the players, but I really feel like a lot of the time, the plays that are being called are just not good enough. And one criticism I've had for Nick Nurse throughout his tenure with the Toronto Raptors as the head coach, not just this season, but every season he's been here, is his lack of ability to draw up a final play out of a timeout. Consistently, we come out of a timeout and run a garbage play, get a garbage shot, it doesn't go in, and the game is over. You can go to the game 3 against Philly last season, where we come out of a timeout, we inbound the ball, and it turned into an isolation possession to a deep contested 3 that either got blocked or was nowhere near. Even we go to the Kawhi Leonard famous game 7 shot. We came out of a timeout, we had 8 to 10 seconds or whatever it was, and the best shot we could come up with was Kawhi shooting a deep fadeaway baseline long 2 with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in his face, the most famous shot in Raptors history, one of top 2 in NBA history. But If we look at that play, like, it took a miracle off the rim to go in. That wasn't a great play drawn up. I mean, those are just extreme examples, but yesterday in particular, like the play calling late in the game, I just don't think wasn't there. I think it's been worse in other games, but just because that's fresh in our memory, we can bring that up. Also, we talk about some of the lineups that he's putting out, and the start of the fourth quarter yesterday was a disaster lineup, and a lot of people are like, what is he thinking here? The Raptors put out a line to start the fourth quarter in a very close game. We went into the fourth quarter with a lead, the Raptors, and he puts out a lineup of Malachi Flynn, Scotty Barnes, Chris Boucher, Thaddeus Young, and Juancho Hernangomez. 4 guys who really don't create a lot of, 3 guys who don't create any offense for themselves. 1 guy who is very inconsistent in Malachi Flynn from an offensive standpoint. I know he went 2 for 5 from 3, but he had that rough stretch started January. He was like 1 of 17 from 3, very inconsistent. That's not disrespectful to say. And Scotty Barnes, who, was great yesterday, was getting a lot of his own reps and was getting to the rim, scoring really well. But giving him that lineup with no floor spacing, there's no space for him to operate, and we settled for a lot of bad shots. And that lineup just kind of really set the tone for the fourth quarter, and it was confusing. So I think a lot of the coaching decisions have not been good enough this season, and I think that is reason to call Nick Nurse into question. He's definitely not exempt from criticism just because of the roster. However, to take it to such an extremity to say that he should lose his job based on that, I think that is a little bit too far. The reality is he has the rest of this season and 1 more year, as I mentioned. I would like to see improvements from next season, and I still believe Nick Nurse is a very good coach. And I think if he does end up leaving the Raptors, whether he leaves at the end of his contract, whether he's fired, whatever it may be, I think he's going to find another coaching job very, very quickly in this league because executives, people around the league recognize what a talent he is in that head coaching position. However, you could decide that next season, if there are no improvements or there is not enough improvements, despite the fact that maybe the roster is in place to see those improvements, then I think maybe you just decide that the fit really isn't quite there for our team. We want to move on. Maybe it's best for both parties in that scenario. But the roster is not there from this season. I don't think it's good enough to really criticize him heavily, but I still think he can and should have done more with what he has been given despite its deficiencies. I think that's a completely fair thing to say about Nick Nurse. It's not been good enough, but it's not been bad enough to say that he shouldn't have a job. Let's see what we can do next season. The front office has a job to do better, to put a better roster in place. When that happens, we expect to see improvements from Nick Nurse. If there are no improvements, then maybe parting ways would be the best thing. That's not a decision I'm going to make right now or this season at all. That's all for this video. What do you guys think about Nick Nurse's future? Do you want him to stay? Do you want him to go? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video on Amateur Hour Sports. If you did enjoy, please be sure to smash that like button. Help us get to 250 likes on today's video, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel for videos like this all throughout the week, live stream watch parties for every single Raptor game. So like I said, this is the second of 7 straight days of content on this channel. Get involved, get subscribed today. We'll see you next time.